This woman writes this post. She says, my boyfriend has been neglecting me for a long time, and now he is addicted to work. And so what we just like as people do is like we gravitate towards the things that we feel like we're succeeding at. And we go away from the things like we feel like we're failing at. And right now, just from your title, it seems that he is feeling like he's really failing in the relationship, or feels like it's just a lot of drama in the relationship. And if he's in there, it causes just hassles. Whereas when he's at work, he's making progress, he's making money, people respect him. It's like maybe he doesn't get that respect when he's at home. And so he starts to resent, or he starts to back away, or in your wordage, neglect the relationship. But that is a common reason why guys or anyone really gets addicted to something other than the relationship and spends much more time there, for instance, like at work. She says, hi. So she's 27, boyfriend's 32. My boyfriend of 8 years has recently started working from home. I have been WFH for about a year now, and I'm happy with my work/life balance because I'm able to set limits, log out when my day is done, and set reasonable expectations with my employer. My boyfriend has not yet mastered this, and while I am able to provide practical advice, so she's telling him what to do. 3 C's of masculinity, one of them being controlled. Those are the 3 basically biggest pain points with men. It happens with women too, but it's just more people that are masculine. Their pain points are more directed to those 3 C's: controlled, criticized, and when they're women or whoever's closed off to them, they don't feel like they're succeeding. So she's giving him practical advice around this. Only he can put it into practice himself. So she's saying, oh, I know how to do it, and this is how you do it. She's trying to, probably coming across as trying to control him. This results in him checking his emails on his days off, taking work calls before and after his shifts begin and end, and checking work systems when he is not getting paid to do so. I admire his work ethic, I suppose. So he's stepping up his game, but I knock on effort. Effect is that he becomes exhausted by work, and then he's tired and becomes snappy, rude, and abrupt. Well, maybe it is. So sometimes it's like we act out of the state we're in a given moment. It's like that's usually how we interpret meaning based on how we're feeling in the moment. It's just a huge filter we have in our life. And like sometimes we have those emotional reactions. It's like, well, how we look back at it, it's like, well, why did I even say that? It's like, that's not who I am. Like, that's not things I do, but I just snapped at that person because I was tired, or I was exhausted, or I was in this negative state. So sometimes you do have that. But just be careful on kind of adding on that or stacking on that with trying to control what he's doing. I originally tried to tell him that I am worried about his emotional well-being and that I was concerned about him burning himself out, but he insists everything is fine. I also framed it by telling him how he takes it out on me whenever he is exhausted. So now she's saying, you're doing this and that's hurting me. And so instead of saying, hey, I'm trying to figure this out myself because I'm just interpreting like how you're acting and just in ways that just don't really make sense totally, and I'm trying to figure this out for me. It's like coming from basically, I need help because I need help understanding this. She's coming from a place of, you're doing this and that's causing me to be pain, and you need to stop that now kind of attitude. And it's combative, and that kind of communication does not work effectively in most cases or long term, and it really just causes a lot of resentment to really block really that connection that you need to effectively communicate. He then tells me he's sorry, but he doesn't change his habits. So that's just his way out. He's like, he doesn't want to deal with it. So he says, oh, I'm sorry. And then what that does is when he's just apologetic and just not really sticking up for what he's doing, or saying, hey, I work hard. It's like, I don't really want to hear that, or something like that. Or way he sticks up for the efforts or his self-value. Instead, he's saying, oh, I'm so sorry. And he's backing off. And he's probably just doing this just kind of get rid of her so he doesn't get confronted and doesn't have to deal with this conflict. But still, it communicates less of a strong quality if he's in this apologetic for everything every time she just brings up something that bothers her. And when he gets in this like not as strong state, it communicates that his leadership is not the best, and she's not with someone that's super strong that can lead this relationship in a masculine way. So it's like if he displays weakness, it can be conveyed and more as like it's more of like a weakness, and so she doesn't feel totally safe. And women really need to feel safe with their man. It's not in regards to like, oh, because of him, like I'm afraid of him personally, but it's like being around him, they just don't give off that vibe where it's like she knows that he could protect her if something happened, or he's just there to kind of have that safety realm. It's like women feel unsafe like so much more than men. It's like I was at a Tony Robbins seminar, he had everyone raise their hands on men and women raise their hands. It's like women raise their hands if you've felt genuinely afraid in the past month. It was like 95% of women raise their hands. And then he did the same thing for men, and it was maybe 5% of men actually felt that they were unsafe. And so it's just one of those things that you have to be aware of. And in order to really make your woman feel like she's totally safe and secure, is she needs to be with someone who she perceives as being strong. And so it's important to not be back down or apologetic, or just stick up for what you're doing and stick up for your own values. Yeah. We used to have fantastic conversations. The other day we were discussing something, and he turned out while I was talking. So he's not giving her his full presence. Like there's a lot of things that are going on in this relationship that really need to kind of be tweaked and revised. It's because he's not showing up. He's probably not feeling that great around her, doesn't necessarily want to be around her because it's like, well, there's always this conflict. And so he's not like giving her his full attention. And when that doesn't happen, she doesn't feel like seen or sometimes understood. That causes problems. So it's just like when one thing happens, when one thing gets out of line, it often translates to other things. And then just kind of spirals down as far as the relationship and the quality of the relationship. He then snapped and shouted, "I'm not listening to you." So yeah, either that's a buildup from other things you've been doing throughout, the day, or like the last month or whatever, the time before that kind of built up to that moment where he basically just is holding it in. And that's kind of gives me some clues on like that's kind of what his approach is like when you confront him, he'll just say, "Oh, sorry," but he's really pissed off, and so he's not actually saying what he actually feels. He's just basically holding it in and holding it in and holding it in. But really he's feeling like this is bullshit, like how you're treating me or how you're trying to control me. And even though you might not feel like you're trying to control him, and even though you're really out to help him, you might just not be communicating in a way that's really effective in making him want to be helped or want to have that connection with you. And so it seems like he's just bottling up all these emotions. And then when something happens and then he like turns away, it's like he wasn't into the conversation. You try to tell him something, he's just like, I'm done with this. And then he blows up, like a situation like that. Again, and that's another thing. It's just like we have to communicate our feelings and not bottle it up inside. So it's like if we feel something, we have to say it, really. There's exceptions to that for sure, but it's like in this situation when we have this anger and we're just building up this anger, it's not a healthy just to store all that inside until it just kind of breaks and you just have this emotional reaction. Our tenancy is coming to an end and the landlord wants to repurpose the property, so we've been looking for somewhere new to live. The only problem is that he rejects every house I suggest. So you're trying to take the lead, you're trying to take the control, you're acting probably more in your masculine energy, and so you're kind of repelling his attraction to you because you're probably not acting in really your feminine energy right now. And he feels totally uncomfortable because he's being forced into this like feminine role. And the polarities aren't aligned. So the masculine and feminine polarities aren't aligned. And when that doesn't happen, it's just like the attraction's gone and just like your desire to be in the relationship drastically fades. Okay. Suggest, and when I said I need somewhere to store my bicycle, he said I was asking for too much from a property, and that my current fitness kick, I've lost 11 kilos since January this year, is only temporary and I'll give up on it soon. That's a pretty shitty thing to say. And that really shows further that he is really acting weak in this relationship and acting weak in his overall life. If he's bringing you down for things like that, no matter what, if it's like, if it's a bad relationship, if things are going bad, it's like, no matter what, you don't bring somebody down like that, especially your ally in life, you know? I just don't know if I can deal with this for much longer. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to do, and it's a lot to kind of um, adjust. I was gonna say fix, but it's more of an adjustment, really, because a lot of these things, it's just like if you understand them, and you understand, you know, the different ways men and women communicate and feel, and the ways that attraction works, and the ways of building attraction through, you know, space, um, and the polarities, the alignment of the polarities, you know, and communicating in a way that the other person would actually accept it, as far as in their mind. So it's like men often value respect sometimes higher than love. I personally think they're pretty much the same thing. They're just communicated or interpreted in a different way. I think love and respect are really the same thing, but it's like the way that love is communicated through like respect is typically what men crave. And on the opposite, it's like women often crave love, interpretive, like the label, I guess, of being loved, sometimes over being respected. And so you have to understand these things. And so it's like, women, if you can just make your man feel successful, respected, feel like he is succeeding in the relationship, succeeding with you, that he's doing a good job, that can make all the difference. And oftentimes it's like she'll try to solve the problems with acts of, you know, trying to love him or things like that. And although it's very, very important and very useful to feel that, it's like sometimes guys just want to feel like they're doing good, you know. um, yeah, and then vice versa. It's like sometimes guys will try to communicate more respect approach to solving problems versus really a more loving and feeling approach. We're not intimate. When that happens, it's a sign that usually in the polarities, the intimacy is in there, and so it's like if those polarities aren't aligned, or sometimes it's like if there's over pursuit, but that doesn't seem like the case with your situation. It just seems like the polarities are aligned, and there's too much conflict compared to positive things, and so that's causing pain and associations with pain being with your partner. Um, yeah, okay, we're not intimate and haven't been for months. Yeah, and so it's like Esther Perel talks about this. She does basically, her main focus is on desire, and what causes desire. And she says if you have intimacy like sex 11 times or less per year, then that equals basically no intimacy as far as your emotional connection to the other person. I feel like he's addicted to work and refuses to acknowledge my needs in this relationship too. Yeah, and going back to what I was talking about at the beginning, it's like he feels like he is succeeding at his work, and that's where he's getting rewarded. Again, that's where he's getting respected. And he doesn't feel like he's getting those things at home and in the relationship. And so, you know, where we're succeeding tends to be where we put our focus, and it's not really with you right now as far as him feeling like he is succeeding. And so you're asking, has anyone else been through a dry patch like this, and what did you do to fix it? Yeah, so there are dry patches, meaning like long-term cycles. You'll see that a lot. So with long-term relationships, and really relationships, anything you're learning, gym, whatever it is, it's like your business. It's like sometimes you have like super high energy just naturally towards it, and you want to do it. That's your main focus. Is like, man, I just like no matter like get it done kind of attitude. And then sometimes it's like your motivation just drops. And it's like you kind of just plateau and you're just kind of going through the motions. And so sometimes you will experience that, but I don't necessarily think that's the case with your situation. I think there's a lot of patterns that the two of you are doing that aren't really fulfilling each other's needs, and since that's not happening, it's just creating too much pain in the relationship. And so, I mean, go over those things. It's like check if those polarities are there and then find, some of this stuff is going to take time to learn. It's not just like be successful at relationships quick, although knowing just these concepts and awareness of these things can drastically and almost immediately change your relationship. But really, to sustain it, you have to understand the principles behind why these things work. And so I go over these in my videos and then also in my products below, and kind of give you that foundation to basically use as far as understanding those principles. And when you can understand basically the human nature concepts behind why these things work, it's like then you can take them for yourself and then you can implement them in your own life, almost like you basically follow the model at the start, but then you'll kind of venture out and try to be and add your own twists and stuff that all apply to those same concepts. And that's really when relationships get fun, when you can spot these patterns and really adjust to these patterns, and then really succeed at relationships.